views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
As we continue our Race in America series here on Perspectives, on this episode, we discuss how the leverage for the fight for Black equality while remaining accountable to negative issues that are plaguing our very own communities. My special guest today is going to help us as we unpack this and share his perspective on how we can fight racism, strengthen our community, also talk about education and culture. Stay tuned. Perspective starts now with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind? Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference in someone's life. Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for joining us. And as always, you can watch Perspectives every week here on BronxNet's Channel 67. If you have Verizon Fios, that's Channel 33, of course, and anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. We also want you to stay connected to us at all of our social media platforms. That would be BronxNet TV. You can also stay connected to me personally. My professional page is Daren C. Jaime on Facebook and DC Jaime 23 on Instagram and Twitter. And there you can hit me up, get some information, and also get some inspiration as well. Well, we've got a very special show coming up for you today, and we go front and center with the issue of education, race, family, culture, politics, all that on tap right now. I'm pleased to be joined by our next guest. And our guest today is an educator, and he's also a professor for the Hostos CUNY Fatherhood Academy. In addition to that, he's the co-founder of Culture Builders NYC. That's an educational consulting company that supports schools with building thriving experiences for the community. And he's also the founder of Little Bro Summer Camp, which is a 7-week program that actually supports elementary young men learn civic and special action. I should say community action as well. And so we're pleased to be joined by our very special guest who is sharing with us, Barry Cooper, who's here. And Barry, good to have you.
Thank you, Daren. I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait to dive into this conversation, especially with everything that's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about everything that's going on. It's really a lot to unpack. But when we talk about America right now, we're in the midst of course, social unrest, civil unrest, dealing with police brutality, issues of equality, and things of that nature. But I know for you, you've had a very particular passion about addressing the needs affecting Black America. So when we talk about what's going on right now, how do you see things?
So, you know, I'm a very transparent guy, so I'm gonna just be
go right ahead. You on Perspectives. That's why you're here, brother.
Unfortunately, and I just posted this on my Facebook and had dialogue the other day. I feel like I'm in a bad episode of Groundhog's Day. You know, for too long in our communities, we have been confronted and faced with the vicious cycle of racism, the vicious cycle of systematic control, systematic oppression, and we continue to be active, but I don't know if we continue to be intentional about how we make the changes necessary for the revitalization of our community and even the protection of our community. So, you know, I always tell people, and even the young people that I work with, like, evil is going to be evil, systems are going to be systems, but how as a people do we, you know, kind of like circumvent them things, and we really be intentional about what work needs to be done within, so that when we do have to address these issues, we have a lot more power and a lot more substance as we activate.
Mm-hmm. You work in the educational system. Talk to me about where you see education going, particularly the plight of Black America as we're dealing with education.
So, you know, I was the Dean and Director of Culture for Eagle Academy, the one in Brownsville, Brooklyn, for a number of years. And then in 2017, I left to start the Culture Builders, and we're an educational consultant company. And, being an Eagle, we were kind of like in a bubble because, we had the mainframe that we needed. We had the support from David Banks and the Eagle Foundation. So like all of the resources really poured in. But when I stepped outside of that, and, I've been doing the work in so many different schools, what I see is that, the city of New York, they're not prepared. They come up with all of these budgets, they come up with funding, but they have a struggle with putting the funding in a way where principals and the leaders of the school can utilize the funding that will really support the development of young people. And I don't mean just academically, I mean social emotionally. They kind of like create sometimes like a cookie cutter approach to how you support young people. And if they don't get the outcomes right away in a year or 2 years, then they want to kind of like disband programs. And they fail to realize that, the development of a mind, of a person, doesn't take 2 years to happen, right? Like that's a lifelong thing. So I just feel like they could do a lot more with like giving these social emotional programs a bit more time, a bit more freedom to create structures that they know that can support individual students instead of like this broad approach and then like shoving it down these leaders and these educators' throats.
And for you, talk to me. I mean, obviously, working with students and seeing students, talk about right now what we're seeing, because COVID-19 has definitely caused a lot of us to have to go virtual. For African Americans and for those in communities of color, how hard has it been that navigating from going from the classroom environment to a virtual environment?
There has been extremely, extremely difficult. I think when COVID happened, the real economic ills of our community just like was exposed 10 times over. And people, they see kids with cell phones, coming to school, but they don't realize that that might be the only device. They don't realize that sometimes the phones that they bring to the school is their parents, because that's the only way their parents can stay in contact with them. So it just showed how ill prepared we were as a community, as an institution in education, when it comes to virtual learning and just even having the resources to give young people before all of this happened. You go to more affluent communities and they already were doing virtual learning.
Right.
You have like, private schools and Catholic schools. Virtual learning wasn't like this crisis mechanism. It was the way the kids learn. And, being in this time where everything is social media, everything is, internet, I just didn't understand why we were not prepared. And as you can see, to present day, nobody still has an answer. Like, in fact, you have kids now kind of like pushed into all these virtual summer schools. And a lot of the educators that I talk to, or a lot of the educators that we've supported, they're stressed out because now they have to work with young people that they've never developed a relationship with. They put all of these schools in one space and this virtual learning is supposed to happen. So, better late than never. But we really need to pick up the slack when it comes to how we support families virtually.
Yeah. How do you look at where we are today as a country? Obviously, social unrest, civil unrest is going on, and African Americans, communities of color are really under the rock right now. But yet and still, it seems to be this resurgence of one activism and a resurgence of holding people accountable. How do you see things right now?
So I totally agree with that. It's funny because I think more so than ever, the COVID norm that we've been in has really given people the ability to kind of like stop and see things. Before stuff would happen, but life was going on. But this pause allowed America, right? No matter what color you were, no matter, what social economic background you have come from, it allowed America, whether you were racist or not, like to see something that heinous, like in your eye, you couldn't escape it. So I feel like that is what really gave power to it, and it's kind of dope to see so many white allies being a part of the movement and the protests, like really making change, like profound change. But again, I just hope that with all of the protests, I just hope that it doesn't fizzle out and we're not strategic about how we are supporting our communities with substance, because we're in a day where we have a president who is very blatant about what side he is choosing. He is very blatant about breaking down the very structures of what government stands for and what policies are. Like, he is unapologetically doing whatever he wants. And I feel like, although it's a wrong approach and it's criminal, I think that people, and especially people of color, we need to see that for what it is, and we need to start doing what we need to do to self-preserve as a community.
Yeah. Barry Cooper is our guest here on Perspective. Stay with us. We've got more coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about the bro experience. Barry's going to let us know about the bro experience and what exactly that all means. That and more on Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime. Taking a break. We'll be right back right after this. And we are back here on Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you, and so glad to have you sharing with us. Throughout the course of the last several weeks, we've been doing this series about race in America, talking about the African-American plight, talking about police brutality, talking about injustice, talking about civil disobedience, a whole bunch of topics, the Constitution, a whole bunch of topics that we're talking about, really because it's important for us to get information. It's important for us to have information. It's important for us to also hear perspectives, because there are a lot of great people doing some great work with boots on the ground, and we want to make sure that we're staying connected and keeping you connected to those persons as well. Our guest today is another person that has boots on the ground and doing great work, talking about Barry Cooper. He is an educator, and not just an educator, but a professor for the Hostos Cutie Fatherhood Academy. And he was sharing with us in the first segment, and Barry rejoins us right now. And Barry, before the break, I was talking a little bit about a program that you've got called the Bro Experience. And so for somebody who doesn't know about the Bro Experience, give us a little education on the Bro Experience.
Absolutely. So the Bro Experience, it's actually it's an acronym. So it's Brothers Redefining Opportunity. And what happened was, a lot of my work for the past several years have been around the development and the cultivation of young men of color. I've had the privilege of, working with the Mayor's Action Plan as the MAP program, as a program coordinator for the Next Step program in Bushwick Housing in Brooklyn. I contract with the Department of Corrections, and I go in and I do work with men of color who are, currently incarcerated. And, kind of like having that ability to see the lineage of, a young man from the age of 11 to 45, and really seeing, one, the disconnect, and two, how these systems that we talked about a little earlier are affecting them so, mentally and emotionally. And this is why they make some of the decisions they make. I wanted to create spaces where we could redefine, one, what it means to be a man of color in America, and really promote the positive images of men of color, because although we have some who struggle and find themselves in trouble, and that's who they promote, I feel like we need to take the helm and promote ourselves. So that's where you get the Brothers Block Party. So the Brothers Block Party is a festival that we have been doing for the last 3 years, where we highlight and we promote men of color and the positive images through fashion, education, finance, mental health. Mental health is kind of like the drive, where we have conversations on the festival day, different panel discussions. It's literally a block party, but a block party with a purpose. So doing that work, I realized that, okay, I'm in this space with kind of middle school age to 45, but what about our younger guys? And, I'm the type of man who I don't wait for anybody to do anything, especially when it comes to my community. So I started doing a little bit more deeper research, and I realized that in Brownsville in particular, the reading scores were the lowest across New York City. And I'm saying to myself, well, if you have young men who are entering in the third grade and they're reading on less than a kindergarten level, and then in the third grade, this is the year that they take tests, and if they fail the test, this very test is almost like the statistics they use on how many beds that they put in Rikers Island or in state correctional facilities. How then do I kind of like live on the back end of it? And that's how we started Little Bro Summer Camp. So Little Bro Summer Camp is an extension where little brothers redefine an opportunity. And the camp's core purpose is to support young men of color from 3rd grade to 8th grade, have full understanding of who they are and how they should show up for themselves, for their families, and for their community. And then we really drive home the literacy piece. So in the 7-week program, we have an extensive kind of like reading programs where we prepare them coming out of 2nd grade into 3rd grade for those state exams, and we support them throughout. And that is kind of like the thread for Little Bro Summer Camp that happens every single year. So what happened was I had all of these different pieces, Darren, and then I was just like, well, I can't keep operating in these silos with my work. So that's how the Bro Experience came. So Brothers Redefining Opportunity Experience will be a non-for-profit 501c3 that we're actually currently structuring now, where we're going to take all of those entities and have them live under one space. We're going to, have our own building. And we hope that, and particularly in Brownsville, Brooklyn, that's going to kind of like be the epicenter of where we start.
Right.
We really change the texture and the dynamic of how people in Brownsville see the young men and how the young men see themselves. So I'm like super excited.
Yeah. Perception is key. I mean, I think that sometimes, there's in the Bible it talks about we are grasshoppers, right? And instead of seeing, in other words, not seeing ourselves for who we should be. And so I know that you're doing a good job of trying to really recreate that image of what people should see, particularly as a young man and as a man out there. And are you disturbed by the fact that pretty much the perception that most people get is not a fair one when it comes to communities of color and brothers? I mean, it seems as though if you're not an entertainer, if you're not an athlete, it's almost like you get no shine. But there's plenty of great brothers out there that's doing some great stuff. And no, they're not always in front of the lights and the camera, but they are, taking the action.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm deeply disturbed by that. But, as we know, that is how they break our community, right? If you look at other communities, they promote their men, right? You go to a Jewish community, they are at the forefront. You go to Caucasian community, they are at the forefront of the Asian community. The men are at the forefront. But, when it comes to our communities, it is systematic why we're not promoted. Even when you look at the commercials of today, they'll promote a commercial and you'll see a single mother of color, which we promote our moms because they're doing great work, but they'll never show a man coming in from work for a Old Navy commercial in Old Navy clothes, right? Like those images are not seen. So me seeing that, I realized that, like you said, perception is everything. People see before they talk. They think before they say anything, right? Like information is coming in a mile a minute, and if we don't take our own narrative and really push it the way we see fit, especially now we don't have no excuse because we have social media at the palm of our hands. We become the problem. So like I just want to be a force or an entity, or I want to just create space that gives way to that positive perspective.
Yeah. Positive perspective. You ended it right there on a good note. Listen, that word perspective.
Yeah.
And we got to come back with more perspectives. We got Barry Cooper here, our guest, and we will get into our last segment. But stay with us. We're coming right back right after this. And we are back here on Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you. So glad to have you sharing. And as always, you can watch Perspectives every week here on BronxNet Channel 67 and Verizon Files Channel 33. And of course, check us out on the web at bronxnet.org. My guest in studio, educator, not just an educator, but also a professor at Hostos CUNY Fatherhood Academy, none other than Barry Cooper. And been talking a little bit about the young brothers, been talking about the older brothers. And he's an educator par excellence. And I want to ask him a little bit about getting ready to be that educator, because we are in the summer season and the fall is right around the corner. And as people are gearing up for the fall semester, colleges and particularly the City University of New York are still a little bit uncertain as to how things are going to flesh out post-COVID. So let me ask you, what are you looking at and how are you anticipating this fall semester coming in?
Yeah, so it's still kind of up in the air. We actually started on our next cohort for CUNY Fatherhood Academy. So just a little shameless plug. Any fathers from the ages of 18 to 29 who want to be a part of CUNY Fatherhood, just hit me up. But we're like still in this virtual space. As of right now, a lot of the classes and the different programs will still be virtual. I want to say maybe, they may start doing 1 week on, 1 week off type of situation, but it's not as clear as we would like it. And that goes for, the Department of Education as well, being a contractor and, supporting a lot of teachers in different schools. When it comes to funding for the type of work that I do, it has scaled back because obviously they don't need behavior management programs inside of if kids are learning from their living room. So we've been trying to circumvent and create spaces where we can support young people and even the teachers around how to enhance this virtual space. It's very difficult, especially when it comes to the CUNY programs, because, you have a lot of people who go to CUNY programs and they're from different countries. They may be immigrants. They may not have a lot of the resources that we spoke about a little earlier. So those are some of the same issues that we see even on a college level. So it's still virtual, and it just changes week by week and month by month.
Yeah, I know. A lot to look forward to, and we're going to see how things really flesh out. I mean, I think nobody's got it figured out. But after all, I think in all fairness to everybody, I don't think anybody can ever be, have a master's degree or anything in this, because we've never been in a pandemic before. So the word that I've been always trying to hear and talk to people about is, hey, we're all still trying to figure it out. So much respect to CUNY for still trying to figure it out. But I know that things still must be planned. And I know that you still got to, look ahead and look forward. So I know that in 2021 for you, you got some great plans going with your organization as well.
Yeah. So, this year in the next couple of months, well, first of all, we would have had the summer camp, but we couldn't do that because of COVID. And the end of September, the last Saturday in September, is when we would normally have the Brothers Block Party Festival. So I thought it was going to be over, but it looks like the way the city going, the way that Brooklyn is going, I'm hoping that we will be able to do some variation of the Brothers Block Party. So we're going to call it the Brothers on the Block Takeover, where we're going to probably really try to occupy one block. And what we want to do is we want to enhance and support the city with COVID testing. We'll still have the fun. We'll still have different panel discussions, but we will also do a ton of mental health screening for men of color, because you know, that is really not talked about. And, you know, a lot of people are dealing with anxiety. And on top of the fact, we see what's going on across the city with a lot of this violence and brutality that's happening within our community. So, you know, I want to one, keep the vein going, but also really make it purposeful where we can give some supports and support men of color by just getting the resources that they need.
Yeah, New York City is seeing a tremendous uptick in violence, particularly Brooklyn, Bronx, over the course of the last couple of weeks. Shootings, murders. Give me a little bit about your take. What do you believe that all of this actually stems from? Is it hot? Is it just brothers are tired of being inside, COVID-19, or is it just the norm that we actually see within an urban setting?
Yeah, so I think in particular this, it definitely has something to do with the COVID situation, people being kind of like locked, you know, in the house. Things are open, but they're not open. You know, so normally people in the community will probably be out a little bit more where they have been used to being confined, and that has built aggression. Now, you know, I got mixed feelings about the things that I see because you know, on the rise of like this defund police, you know, and that type of movement, it just seems too odd to me that the spike in the violence is this extreme. We have never seen it this extreme. I don't think since the 80s and 90s. But, you know, even with that being said, I think it goes back to what we talked about a little earlier about us being intentional, Daren. You know, everybody always calls me and says, "Coop, you coming out? You coming out for this protest?" And I'm like, I'm only coming out if I know that I got a plan. I'm only coming out if I know if I can hold space to really give tools to the individuals who need it. I don't necessarily subscribe to stand on the street corner screaming and yelling at the top of the lungs for people who are not well, right? Like for somebody to pull a gun out and to kill, and especially kill babies and things like that, even if it was unintentional, right? Like that type of person doesn't need individuals screaming on the street corner. That person needs somebody to bring them in and take them to therapy, right? We need to create those spaces. And I hope that through this situation, because everybody's super aware, we start as organizations going inside of these schools. Every council district there, in every assembly district, every state seat district has schools within their districts. If organizations throughout the year, from September to June or even September to September, really focused on going inside of those schools and supporting those middle and high school students every single day, we will not have as much issues as we have now. Will we end gun violence? No, because we can't get rid of the NRA and we can't get rid of the 5 gun manufacturers for some reason. But we will be able to reduce gun violence because violence is the end result of negative reactions. And if we focus on building positive reactions consistently as a community, I think that we will have a decrease in negative interactions. But when it comes to this summer, I feel like it's been exacerbated because people have been really locked in and people are like really showing their emotions in a negative way.
Yeah. Well, we got just about 30 seconds left. Before we go, I want you to I want to give you the opportunity. Once again, tell people they want to get connected to the Bro Experience, Little Bro Experience, what you're doing, the Fatherhood Academy. How do they do that?
Yeah, so you can actually hit us up on the Bro Experience on Instagram. So it's the Bro Experience _. You can find me Coach Coop _ or www.littlebroexperience.com. We're actually in a process right now, me and Tiffany, of merging everything together to actually become a 501c3, and the Brothers on the Block takeover in the last Saturday in September will hopefully be our launch. So yeah, everybody can reach out to me there for right now.
All right, Barry Cooper, we got to leave it there. Loving you, brother. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, man. Great work.
Thank you, Darren.
All right, Barry Cooper, our guest here on Perspectives. Want to thank you for watching. Listen, that's all the time we have for today's show. But what you can do is you can share your perspective with somebody else, because guess what? It just might make a difference in somebody else's life. Daren Jaime saying take care and God bless until next time we meet here on Perspectives.